Anyway, we were in Belém and in North Brazil, and we were in this church that some of you may have been there, and the church would seat 2,500 people, and it was packed. I mean, it was not only every seat packed, every space on the stage. I mean, there's at least 3,000 people. I mean, in the building is way beyond, and on the outside is another 500 wanting to get in, and there's no room. And when you walked into that place, it was electric. The atmosphere was electric with faith. And it was so easy. In just a matter of a few minutes, out of the 3,000 people that were in the building, 1,288, I'd say within 15 minutes, we had 1,288 healings. It was electric. It was so exciting. And the next night, my team is sent to another church, and this other church, when we get there, when our team comes in, we got more people on our team than's in the church. There weren't 20 people in the church. And it was so discouraging and so depressing that the pastor took us back to his office so we wouldn't see how many people aren't there. And he doesn't let us out for worship. He waits till worship's over before he lets us out of his office. And when we go out, the church would seat 1,000, it's maybe half full. It's 500 people. And it is the opposite feeling of the night before. This church is not electric with faith. There's not this high expectation. It's the opposite. It is, I don't know why it is, but you feel discouragement. You feel a lack of faith. It's the opposite. And I remember thinking, oh God, I wish I could have gone back to that other church last night, because we had almost 50% get healed. That's amazing, God. Why did I have to come here? God, this is so hard. These people, I can feel it. God, there isn't any faith here. And I thought, what are you going to do? And I'm thinking, we need to change the atmosphere. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't know how we were going to change the atmosphere, in the sense that I didn't have a strategy or a plan, other than I just need to tell them what we've seen God do. And we showed a little video the night before with everybody that was healed waving their hands like this. See, it's the video they saw of all those people, at least 50%. And then we counted 1,288, but when you look at it, it looked like it's much more than 50% waving their hands like this the night before. And then I wanted them to understand word of knowledge, and I began talking about, this is what I believe God's going to do tonight. And I actually said, if I had to believe that God's going to heal based upon our faith in this room tonight, I wouldn't have any faith that anything was going to happen. I wouldn't have faith or expectation that God is going to heal tonight based upon what I'm sensing right now. But my faith is not in me, and my faith is not even in you. If I had to believe that God could give, that you could have enough faith that we could have a lot of healings tonight, I just said it. Now you're saying, boy, you just don't sound like you're building much faith here. But I was just being honest. I was saying, I just don't believe that's what we need. But what I'm expecting God to do tonight, I'm expecting that God, by His grace, to do things in this meeting that will cause us to come into faith, and He is going to create faith in this place tonight. And I want to tell you some of the ways He's going to do it. And I said one of them is word of knowledge. You may not know what that is, but let me give you an illustration of what it's like. And I brought Marcus up, and I said, this is my associate. This is Marcus. And we were in the same denomination a few months ago, about 100 miles from here, same denomination, and Marcus gave a word of knowledge. And his word of knowledge is, he saw a picture of a red helmet with a black face on it, with scratches across the top where the person had been injured. And somebody is here, you were in a motorcycle wreck, and you were wearing a red helmet with a black face, and it had this, and you ended up with white, with the paint scratched off on the top. That's what he gave. And when he gave that, on the platform over on our left was about 50 pastors and pastoras, a woman pastor. And one of them, it was for her. And she began to weep immediately. And she stood up and started walking toward Marcus, because several years before, on a motorcycle, wearing a red helmet with a black face. She was in a wreck, landed on the top of her head and did damage, and she had been in pain for years, all in many parts of her body, just literally suffering pain. And when she heard that, she knew, he's calling me. She knew not only that God could heal, then she believed in healing, she preached on healing, but she had never been healed yet. But this word of knowledge was so clear that she knew, this is my night. And by the time she gets to Marcus, she is already healed. Nobody prayed for her, nobody laid hands on her. Her faith healed her, but God was the author of that faith, because God gave a word of knowledge that was so specific that she knew, this is my night. It was a gracelet of faith. It was the gift of faith that God had created. Now, I gave that word, and as soon as I gave that word, within 15 seconds, over there at that door, there was a sliding door in front of everybody. The sliding door comes open, and we are now about an hour and a half into the service, and this young man, I think it was his girlfriend, come through the door in front of everybody. And she's carrying a red helmet with a black face in her left hand. And I looked at that, and honest, God is my witness, I said to myself, to God, you got to be kidding me. And I knew, see, for me, this is not a coincidence. This is what I made up a word, a provident. This is a moment of providence in which God has set this thing up with the timing of this, that she walked in, and I didn't, she's young. And I tried to get her attention. I couldn't. She got all the way to the back that night. She got ready to sit down. I said, hey, the woman, you're about to sit down. Right now, I got a question for you. You got that red helmet. Do you need to be healed? She said, yes. I said, come up here in front of everybody. Frankie, this is one of those that I knew. This is one of the ones you do it with. Come up here. God's about to heal you. Now, I don't normally move in that realm of faith. But God had done something, and I knew his ways. That I knew he's getting ready to heal her. And so I wasn't, when you're not sure, don't pretend you are. And when you are, don't pretend you're not. just be real. And so she came up, I interviewed her, and Mark was there, and we found out several things wrong with her. We start praying for her, and she starts sweating. The power of God hits her, and she starts getting healed. She's got multiple things. They're getting healed. I'm letting the people know what's going on. And while that's happening, I get another word of knowledge about pain, about right in here. And I said, how many of you have that? Some of them stood up, and then they get healed, and then she gets healed, and she goes back, and I come to the pulpit, and I am just ready to start my sermon. And as I'm getting ready to start my sermon over, because I got interrupted by God, because he's illustrating what it was going to be, and I'm getting ready to start speaking again, all of a sudden I get this pain in my ankles, and I gave this word, and I felt like God said there's going to be 7 people that's going to be healed of this pain in your ankle bones. And 8 people stood up. And I said, I'm sorry, I must have missed God. I thought I heard 7. Is it just an impression? It's more, it's better. I said, I don't feel like I'm supposed to pray for you. You just try to do what you can, and God's going to heal you. That's a declaration. I actually believed it too. And God's going to heal. If you'll just try to do right now what you can't do, you're going to be healed. You know what happened? 7 of the 8 got healed. I'm going to say, all right, let's go back. Let's start the sermon. I go back. I'm getting ready to start the sermon again. Oh, I just got this pain in my knees, and I gave a word. In fact, so many people are going to get healed to stand up and try to do what you can, and no prayer, nobody's praying. God heals them. I said, well, let's start over. We're going to get to this sermon yet. And I'm getting ready to start again, and then I get this pain in my shin bone and in, is this a femur? femur bone and shin bone on the right leg. And I said, there's somebody here. And here's what I was going to say. Another way you can get words of knowledge. By the way, you can get words of knowledge. You can feel a pain's not yours. You can have a thought that's not yours. You can picture something in your mental, like a mental picture that God gives you. So you can feel them, you can think them, you can see them, you can read them. You can read a word on something. I've never had that. You can dream them. You can experience them. And there's multiple ways you can have a word. And one of them is while you're talking, you say something you didn't plan to say. You can actually just say it. It's called inspired speech. And so I'm getting ready to say there's somebody here that needs to be healed because you have had a broken shin bone and femur bone, and you've got complications, not healed right, and God wants to heal you. And that's what I'm going to say. So I said, there's somebody here tonight. You were hurt on a motorcycle accident, and you had a break in your shin bone and your femur bone. And this man in the very back stands up, and he's limping. And one leg was actually shorter than the other from the damage that had happened, and on a motorcycle wreck, which I wasn't going to say that. It just came out. Marcus is my witness, and there's a whole lot of people on our team is there. And he comes to the front, and by the time he gets to the front, he stopped limping. Now, he was limping because one leg was shorter than the other, but now he's not limping. All of his pain's gone too. You know what? I didn't need to preach because God had did what I said he was going to do. And by that time, there was so much faith in that church where there had been no faith. And I tell you, it wasn't because I was a good teacher. I hadn't really taught anything, really. But I had made a declaration that I believed that tonight God was going to do something, and God was going to build faith, and God was going to do things that would turn this atmosphere of skepticism and depression into an atmosphere of faith. And you know what? God did it. And I was so excited I couldn't go to sleep. I mean, I need to tell you something. We were excited the night before when we had like 42% healed. But there were 365 of the 500 that were healed that night. And when we started, I would have been grateful if we had had 5 healed based upon what the people could do.